This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to PTBN's NBA Team Podcast. We are now in our Final Four. The conference finals is here. We're one round away from the NBA Finals, the championship series. Now we can determine the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference champions. A pretty different mix, somewhat. You know, we have a couple that have been here last year, but it does feel very different. Right, Adam Murray, co-host?
I have not been correct at all.
I don't think a lot of people were correct about the second round. We saw two 60-plus win teams go the way of the dinosaur. I'm talking about, Boston and Cleveland. And Oklahoma City, I had a feeling they were going to have a tough one with Denver, but I didn't think it was going to be that tough.
Don't forget, we also had Philly and Phoenix penciled into these Final Fours, and let's just get into it. Where do you want to start?
Well, since you're a Celtics fan and we just want to try to get the burials out the way, we can talk about the team that eliminated the Celtics, and that's the New York Knicks. The series was competitive at times. It was an odd series because New York got the jump first with going up 2-0 in the first two home games in Boston, which shocked everybody. But then the Jason Tatum injury happens, and late in Game 5, the game had been put away by that point. But once Tatum was out, you just knew that the Celtics were done, along with being down 3-1.
All I could say is it was bad coaching. They were definitely outcoached. You can't just run nothing and shoot threes. Well, if they hit there's only so many historically bad shooting days you can have. Yeah, but if you don't run plays to, it's like if you're a gambler and you're keeping on a losing streak, you do a little $5 bet to get your mojo back.
Here's what they don't understand about that. Like, they're looking at it based off of the percentages, and that's also including regular season. This has been a big talking point in the playoffs. They're just more physical. They're more physical, and the referees are allowing it to be more physical. And when that happens, your shooting percentages are going to go down. That's why we see a lot of these lineups like the Knicks threw at the Celtics, where they are putting two big guys on the court. One of them, most of the time, I want to say he averages like 25 points a game right now for their playoff rotation, is Mitchell Robinson. And that was kind of the secret weapon for the Knicks in that series.
And the Celtics had absolutely nothing and no answers. Of course, when, Tatum's out for this year and probably next year too, it's so soul crushing. So
I give a lot of credit to the Knicks, though. I'll say this about them. I want to hear your thoughts about it, just kind of watching the games too. That is a fucking clutch team. They have about three guys, Brunson, Towns, and Anunoby, who they can just make plays down the stretch of games. And that's what's kind of saved them in a lot of the games that they played against Detroit and Boston.
They could, and they did. And again, Boston had nothing. It was just, well, once we get our shooting back, we got it, but they didn't, and now it's over. So the Knicks will. Is the rematch from last year? Knicks and Pacers.
Yeah, Knicks Pacers, and that went 7 games. The Pacers won Game 7. The Knicks also suffered the injury bug on that one last year. Hopefully, prayers up, like we don't have any kind of really unfortunate, devastating injury that influences the outcome of these playoff series going forward.
Well, we're averaging one Achilles per round, so
right. That means something's going to happen. Unfortunately, that's just the way the math has been going with the injuries in the playoffs. The Pacers played so well against the Cleveland Cavaliers, who just looked shell-shocked defensively. They just did not know how to turn the water off on the Pacers shooting. The Pacers were also, under Carlisle, able to run back on defense so that they didn't get taken advantage of when they tried to speed things up. And Halliburton played really well, also a very clutch player. Knicks fans don't need to be reminded how clutch of a player Tyrese Halliburton is, because he basically put him to bed in last year's playoffs.
I know. So we have the rematch, which I remember the last one. It was a nice story. And now I guess since I picked the Bucks to beat them, and then I picked Cleveland to easily beat them, I got to go Knicks, right?
Well, that's what for the Pacers offensively, can they keep shooting over 50% and over 40% from three? They've been getting so much value from guys like Turner shooting the ball. Andrew Nemhart is a demon offensively right now. He's just very hard to stop when whether he starts or whether he comes off the bench to back up Halliburton. He just comes in, he makes pull-up threes. He's very tough to match up with. And then there's Siakam, who that's going to be the issue for Towns and for Mitchell Robinson, depending on what Tibbs wants to do, is who guards Miles, who guards Siakam. I could see a lot. I could see kind of some soft double teams on Siakam, and they try to close out on Turner so that he doesn't try to get hot from the three-point line, because Turner's a really good three-point shooter. Neither team is really a good defensive field goal percentage team, so I expect high-scoring games, to
Oh
be
yeah, this will
honest.
be 150 to 148 like every
Both
game.
very good offenses. Cleveland actually, even with Cleveland getting bounced, they were so good against the Heat that they still had the highest efficiency among all the playoff teams. But right behind them are the Pacers and the Knicks. So and the Wolves. So you're going to expect fireworks here in terms of shooting. You're going to see a lot of quarters where one team gets 34 and the other team gets 30, and you're like, Jesus, like, is this? But the physicality is going to kick in. Games are going to slow down. You might see a lot of free throws because that's what Brunson and Towns are good at. They're good at marching to the free throw line. Experience is sort of even. Defense is sort of even. Off Rebounding is sort of even because Indiana is terrible at offensive rebounds because they run back on defense, and the Knicks are terrible on defensive rebounding. They try to get into their half court offense. I got a feeling that the Pacers are going to win this series in like 6 games. I think that they're going to steal one of them in the Garden, and they're just going to hold home court. I think their offense has just been so good that if they just don't falter, they're going to win the series just based off of the shooting percentages.
Fair enough. We both have our. The only reason I'm picking the Knicks is because I've been wrong every single time. So
Yeah, can you have Hart guard Siakam?
I mean, no.
Because what they're going to do is they're going to throw Matherin out there and have Siakam and Turner out there at the same time. Obviously, you're going to have Halliburton versus Brunson. We saw this in last year's playoffs, and they both went off.
They
Halliburton
both
had
went
some
off till
bad games, but
Brunson's body crapped out. So
right, he broke his wrist. It's a great matchup. It's going to be on TNT. I have to imagine ESPN is uber pissed that they didn't get the East Finals this year, but that's the breaks. It alternates. On the other side for the West, this is going to be ESPN's haven of a conference finals. We get the Thunder and the Wolves. This is going to be interesting because I think the Wolves are one of the teams that actually has the right combination to knock out the Thunder.
Minnesota is hot at the right time. Minnesota is playing together. They also got lucky. You had the Lakers, who everyone was like, well, Minnesota's going to be stepped over. The Lakers, of course, you're going to have LeBron and Luka. And then you had Steph's injury, which really
and they were up. They were up big in that first quarter or first half against the Wolves in Minnesota before the Curry injury. So you wonder if that would have turned the tables, where instead of Minnesota winning that series, in my opinion, kind of easily after the Steph injury, that if Steph was healthy, would have been closer. I would say, yeah, it probably would have gone 7 games, but that's not what happened for them. An injury clipped the Steph out of there, and it wasn't enough. So we got Anthony Edwards back in the conference finals. This is the second one in a row. So they have experience here. They had Towns last year. This time, obviously, Julius Randle, who's played very well. He played really, really well in the Warriors series.
So with Oklahoma City, moving on to them, Denver played them a lot harder than I thought they would have. I thought Denver would have been spent from that series with the Clippers, but Oklahoma City didn't really overpower them like I thought they would have. They had to battle back.
I honestly think one of the reasons is that Denver's defense really stiffened up in the playoffs. They had a really worthy opponent that they had to eliminate already in the Clippers. So they were already ready to go. But they had a defensive strategy that was sound enough to make Oklahoma City's offense, which is not perfect, go stale or go kind of dry up at times where Shea tries to burp up too many shots. And that's one thing that that will be a problem for Oklahoma City because Minnesota also has a very good defense. Clearly, the Thunder have the best defense in the league, period. That's why they're as good as they are. But Minnesota's defense is not that far behind in terms of efficiency, getting steals, getting blocks with Gobert. They have a good combination of athletes and defensive acumen. Also, a lot of 3-point attempts because both of them are good at making threes.
So this should also be an offensive complete game.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be rough at times. There's going to be some games that end in the 80s. I'll just put it that way.
You think it's going to be defensive? I think it's just going to be one of those.
I think it's going to be a lot of missed threes. They're going to hoist and also remember Minnesota until the later part of the Warrior series, they couldn't make anything from three.
But I thought they're just going to hammer Holmgren and make them play small.
Yeah, that's going to be the nightmare matchup for the Thunder. Can they get Rudy off the court? Because if Rudy is in there, Chet Holmgren is going to have problems physically staying on him. And they're going to be forced to play Hartenstein, who's a good player. The problem with Hartenstein is all you can really get out of him offensively are those little stop jumpers and hooks that he does. He's not a jump shooter. His role is only good if they run fast, which Oklahoma City does, and they kind of leak out and get Hartenstein under the rim for dunks. The problem is that if Holmgren gets in foul trouble, because they're going to be playing McDaniels and Gobert all the time and Randall, then they're going to have to start going small, playing more Isaiah Joe, which they didn't do a lot against Denver, a lot more Aaron Wiggins. Casey Wallace is going to be important too, because I got a feeling him and Nickeil Alexander-Walker are going to play the same roles for each of their teams. I wonder how effective either player is going to be in that regard. Who do you think the Wolves are going to put on Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Do you think it's just going to be Ant?
It has to be. If not, you're just going to let him score 50 and hope you stop everyone else.
Well,
Connolly's
the other thing too is I think NAW and him are I think they're cousins. So that'll be a storyline there where he might be like the secondary defender, or maybe sometimes the Thunder are the deepest team I think left in the playoffs. The second deepest team is Minnesota, because they have not that many bench players that they play, but they have three guys behind the starting five that contribute immensely. And Conley, Alexander Walker, and Reed. Reed will also have a good series. In their regular season matchups, they were 2-2, but Reed had good games. Jalen Williams, that's going to be the problem for Minnesota. Who is going to cover him? Is it going to be McDaniels?
It'll be McDaniels.
Yeah, but McDaniels can get in foul trouble very early with Jalen, because Jalen is good at getting the free throw line and attacking the rim.
And that's why you take out Chet on the other end, and so you make him have to play.
There's going to be some good X's and O's here between Chris Finch and Mark Daigneault. I have the Thunder winning in 6 games. I can see it going 7, but I see a 6-game series here. I'll say this also for the Thunder. If they get past this one, no one can say, oh, man, they dodged this team. They dodged that. They didn't dodge anybody. They beat 2 good teams with MVP candidate players at their best.
It's the West, so this is what we...
It's going to get tougher if you heard the rumors.
Oh, we'll get to that in a quick second. But I picked the Lakers over the Wolves. I picked the Warriors over the Wolves. So obviously, I will pick Oklahoma City over the Wolves. Obviously, both 6 games. Agreed again. But so far, it's just been, like I said, the East has just been marred by that injury hovering over, first the Lillard one. It's like, oh man, he's old. That's going to be...
Can I be honest with you? I think the Pacers were going to win that series anyway. I think they were better than the Bucks.
They probably were, but you never know.
The Bucks without Lillard, still, they had to go to overtime to knock him out in Game 5. So
the Bucks without Lillard put up a better fight than I thought they would have, because that's what I mean.
Whereas for Steph, yeah, we already discussed that. That would have been closer between the Warriors and the Wolves. Celtics, Knicks. Jason Tatum had 42 points before that happened. So I don't know what would have happened if it gone. I could have seen the Celtics with a full strength team come back from 3-1. I could have seen it.
Could have, but it didn't happen. And so here we are with a New York, Oklahoma City final, which ESPN would like, or a
lot of orange and blue, huh? Like, isn't it like a charred orange for New York?
No, it's like the Syracuse orange.
Like the Syracuse orange, and then maybe in Oklahoma City is more of like a normal orange, I guess you could call it.
Uh,
You're gonna look at the stands, you're not even gonna know where you are.
Minnesota and New York is the best storyline driven one
Because of the trade that they
because of the
both did
big
together.
trade. That would be huge. Indiana, Oklahoma City would be real tough to sell.
It's the one that ESPN, ABC, Disney does not want. I'll say that.
And
And
they
that usually doesn't matter. That usually doesn't matter in these, like, if you're the better team, you're the better team. But that's not the one that the networks want to see.
well, the networks, as we repeatedly say, they have not built up anybody to
Hmm.
replace LeBron and Steph. And
Not even the Gilgesaurus.
no, the Edwards showed up.
That's a joke on the Jurassic Park ads they've been running on Disney where they call Shea Gilgis Alexander the Gilgesaurus, and I'm like, ugh. And also poor Jason Tatum. He's doing Superman tie-in ads. They're gonna have to take those off the air. That's sad, huh?
Edwards, they finally built up to he's the next one coming. They put all their eggs in the Luca basket, and it's just like, well, you got Halliburton and you got
Yeah.
SGA. Nope, we got nothing from those guys. Like outside of SGA,
No, they put a lot of their eggs in the Knicks Celtics basket ratings wise, and if you look at the viewership, it paid off for them. It's unfortunate that one of the lower rated series was actually the Thunder and the Nuggets, because those were the two top vote getters for MVP. And you would think to yourself, wow, what a showdown. But it's not what the casual public wanted to see. They wanted to see the big markets.
of course, they always want that because it always should be New York, LA every year.
The thing I find interesting about it in terms of title lineage is we are likely to get an NBA champion this year. And out of the four teams, three of them have never won an NBA championship. And one of them, while a storied franchise, hasn't won one in over 50 years. So you're going to get some fresh blood in the title lineage in the NBA. I also would guess, I don't think we're going to see a team that's going to repeat. I'll just guess that as well. I think injuries and the increased physicality that kind of surprised a lot of opponents. I think that kind of did in a lot of these teams that normally do well in the playoffs, like the Lakers and the Cavs and the Celtics. I think they were taken by surprise.
It's very hard, but those are our predictions. Just a quick draft lottery roundup. Or your tinfoil hat still on, or it's just one of those like sigh, this is what it is, and yeah, it happens. And since the smoothing of the lottery, no worse team has gotten it. And how can you make your product better if the
Is
bad
it
teams
going to discourage tanking is the big question. I would say probably not. Teams will stubbornly still do it
it
because
won't, but
they're going to be in this long drawn out season, and they're just going to say it's better to just give up and try to lose games than to be competitive and then get screwed anyway in the lottery.
yeah, but you can't get better.
Like if I put my tinfoil hat on, Adam Silver punished tanking teams for not trying. Well, what if tanking teams do try and they get 30 wins instead of 23? Do they get better odds in the lottery? I would say no. It just really comes down to luck.
And that's why it should be televised. There's no reason like, oh wait, why does it have to be a big secret?
You know
And
what's funny? I heard that the NHL draft lottery was televised.
well,
The actual Rolodex stuff was actually shown.
and
They should
now
just do it.
now they're the media is rumbling for we need an NFL lottery because the bad teams in the NFL are getting really bad.
Uh Man, I don't know. That's a harder question to answer with the NFL because obviously they don't have a lottery system, but the thing is, if your team is purposefully bad, the commissioner is going to shut that down immediately. That's how I feel about that one.
Like, look at it this way: the Saints last year had 5 wins, and they got the ninth pick.
Hmm.
That is insane. That there were 8 teams worse than that.
What I mean by that is I think the commissioner of the NFL, and Stern used to do this in the NBA. He did this to Gordon, not Gordon Gunn, but Ted Steipen back in the early '80s. If you're not a competitive owner, he's going to push you out. The only
Oh
one he
yeah.
couldn't the only one he couldn't do it to was Donald Sterling, but Silver was able to put the nail in the coffin right after Stern retired. And I think that Goodell is shrewd enough to do that. Say, "Oh, you want to just cash checks and not have a good team and put it on the field? That's fine. We'll just punish you."
Well, that's
The-
why I think Utah. You could also say it wasn't rigged because Utah didn't deserve it because they were blatantly tanking and they got fined for blatantly
yeah, and
tanking.
they're not a threat to relocate. I don't think any of these teams, even Sacramento with a new arena, they're not in a threat. They're not in a position to relocate. So there's not. That's the only time I could see a situation where the league and the owners would both be in agreement of, yeah, let's poison a well in this town
Well,
so that people don't come here, and then we can go to a new lease.
quick question: do you see any relocation?
New Orleans, I can see the Pelicans leaving New Orleans in the next 10 years. If they
I
don't
can
get
see
in
that as
if they
well.
don't find a new location. New Orleans is one of the smallest square miles wise, one of the smallest cities that hosts an NBA franchise, and they'll always be secondary to the Saints. And if they want a new arena, there's just nowhere to go. All you can do is maybe put it over the water by the Crescent City connection, or you could put it in a different parish. We call them parishes instead of counties. But I just don't think it would work for them. That would be where the rubber meets the road between them. Memphis, they're going to want a new arena eventually. I think they're tired of that FedEx arena.
Would anyone care if the Pelicans left?
I think some would, but I don't think. I think it would just be the same as it was before the Hornets got here in the early 2000s. Where it's like, oh great, we have an extra team. The only one they never want to leave is the Saints. They
Oh, the
never want
Saints
to.
will never. There'll be riots down there if the
Right, and
Saints
and
leave.
so and thinking about other teams, I mean, I thought the Dallas stuff was bullshit. That was just a bunch of rumor mongering from toxic fans that wanted to shit on Nico Harrison and how drastically bad it was that he did that trade. They were never going to Vegas. The other one, if I had to think off the top of my head, hmm. I don't think the Magic will ever leave Orlando. That's the only one I could think of.
All right, just
Is there
a
any?
little.
Maybe
Oh,
DC?
no. Besides New Orleans, I could see Charlotte leaving again because there's um, nobody cares about them. The Hawks, Atlanta's been no, and they're notoriously bad for sports. I mean, they've had two hockey teams. The hockey teams left, but I could see Charlotte with just complete disinterest. But you've had the worst franchise of all time, so it
Yeah,
doesn't matter. But
that's what I'm saying. I think expansion is the next way to go.
oh, it
I
is,
don't.
and we're
I don't see
getting
a relocation.
it could just be one of those independent of expansion. But yeah,
Yep,
we'll get Vegas and Seattle, and then we
probably
could
Seattle.
move
Yeah.
Minnesota into the East because they fit more geographically with Chicago and Milwaukee up there.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, that's our predictions. Just in a little
Yeah.
aside there. So
Yeah, we're in our semifinal mode. It's not exactly the teams everybody expected, but it's going to be fun. I mean, the anybody who knows about NBA history knows the history between Indiana and New York. It is rich. There's literally a 30 for 30 documentary about with Reggie Miller. So that's going to be fun to revisit at times as we kind of go through that series. I want the Knicks to get to the finals. I have friends who are Knicks fans. I want to see them get to the finals.
all right. So for
So
Andrew Reach, I'm Adam Murray. Have a good one.
take care.